The Dragonback Series by Timothy Zahn. Book 6, Dragon and Liberator. Chapter 13.
Neverland had told Frost to search the man calling himself Virgil Morgan before allowing him aboard the Advocatus Diaboli. Frost had apparently taken that order very seriously, because Tanim ended up crouching by the grill overlooking Neverland's office for nearly half an hour before the man finally arrived. When he did, he wasn't at all what Tanim had expected. For one thing, he didn't look or smell anything like Jack, as she would assume a relative should. He was a large man, slightly bigger even than Frost, who was walking closely and watchfully behind him. He had broad shoulders and a way of moving that somehow brought the best puka dancers to Tanim's mind. His clothing was another surprise. Instead of Jack's casual jeans, shirt, and jacket, he was wearing a distinguished-looking white uniform. A moment later, she realized it was the same uniform she'd seen earlier on the Advocatus Diaboli's bridge crew. Apparently, Frost had decided not to let the man even keep his own clothes, but had pulled a spare uniform from the ship's stores for him to wear. But all of this Tanim noticed only secondarily. Her main attention was focused on Neverland, and on Neverland's sudden and violent reaction to the man's entrance.
"What in the world?"
he all but gasped, twitching back from his desk.
"Frost! Hold it!"
Frost snapped, grabbing the man's right wrist. Or rather, he tried to grab the man's wrist. Before he could get a solid grip, the other twisted his arm smoothly out of the mercenary's grip. Neverland twitched again, shoving himself even farther back from his desk as if expecting an attack. But the newcomer simply stood where he was, making no attempt to do anything at all.
"Hello, Mr. Neverland,"
he said calmly.
"Nice to see you again."
Snarling a curse, Frost got another grip on the man's wrist.
"You know him?"
he demanded.
"Oh, yes, I know him,"
Neverland bit out.
"His name's Harper. He's one of Cornelius Braxton's bodyguards."
Frost's shoulders twitched, and suddenly his other hand was pressing a gun against Harper's side.
"Big mistake, friend,"
Frost said softly.
"Actually, the mistakes are all on your side,"
Harper said, his voice still calm.
"What Mr. Neverland failed to mention, because Mr. Neverland doesn't know, is that I'm not actually working for Braxton anymore." "Meaning?"
Frost asked.
"Meaning that if all your grand and detailed planning for this operation, you never once thought about putting a spy on Braxton himself,"
Harper said, his voice suddenly hard.
"Did you actually think he was just going to go about his business and forget about you?" "Let me guess,"
Neverland said.
"You're volunteering for the job?" "Don't be absurd,"
Harper said contemptuously.
"The time for that is long over. Fortunately for you, someone else had the foresight to approach me months ago with an offer I decided was worth the risk." "Does this person have a name?"
Frost demanded.
"Yes, a name you know quite well,"
Harper assured him.
"The Patry Chakuk."
Frost snorted.
"Then you expect us to just believe that?" "Of course not,"
Harper said.
"By all means, call him and ask."
He eyed Frost over his shoulder.
"Only be sure none of his brumgas are within eavesdropping distance of the interworld transmitter when you do." "Meaning?"
Frost asked.
"Meaning you've been infiltrated,"
Harper said bluntly.
"One of the brumgas, possibly more than one, has been turned against you." "By whom?"
Neverland asked.
"Braxton." "Worse, the Malison ring."
Harper looked at Frost again.
"Possibly General Davy himself."
A shadow seemed to cross Frost's face.
"That's ridiculous,"
he insisted.
"Davy has no idea what's going on here." "Like he had no idea you were holed up in the Chakuk estate?"
Harper asked pointedly.
"That had nothing to do with Davy,"
Frost growled.
"It was some con Morgan stirred up. Morgan or the Cana girl." "Speaking of Morgan,"
Neverland said,
"if you are really working for the Patry, why this Virgil Morgan masquerade, huh?" With all due respect, Mr. Neverland, kindly start using your brain, Harper said. Our conversation out there could have been picked up by anyone in your fleet. Would you really have wanted me to simply announce my true identity and mission to the Malice and Ring spies? A good point, Neverland said. Again, why Virgil Morgan? Because everyone here knows that you've been trying to find Morgan to get him to open the Kadar Shantine safes for you, Harper said patiently. He's the one person who could show up without raising anyone's suspicions. So how exactly do you know about any of this? Frost asked. If your job was to keep tabs on Braxton, how do you know what General Davy and the Malison Ring are up to, huh? Because Davy and Braxton have had several long conversations together over the past couple of weeks, Harper said, sharing their various pieces of the puzzle, as it were. He raised his eyebrows, and Davy in particular sounded like he's been getting a steady stream of new pieces. There was a short silence. Tanim wondered if Neverland and Frost were thinking about Mershpaw and his supposed attempt to open the Kadar safe. Probably. If Tanim could put those pieces together, surely Neverland and Frost could. All right, you're off the hook, Neverland said at last, for the moment. But we are going to call the Patry. Fine, Harper said. As I said, just make sure the Brumgas are out of earshot. Easily done, since there aren't any aboard the Advocatus Diablo anymore, Neverland said. They're all on the troop carrier or in the Foxwolf. Good, Harper said. Well, that's all I have. The Patry just wanted me to get out here and alert you to the infiltration. He cocked his head. You have any other questions? It's been a long day, and I want to go back to the Essene and rest a bit before dinner. I'm afraid you won't be going back to the Essene anytime soon, Neverland told him. At least, not until we've cleared your story with the Patry. But I'm sure you'll find our accommodations adequate. Just one more question, Frost said. His gun, Tanim noted, was still pressed against Harper's side. If you're working for the Patry, why did you blast out of the Penant City's police station with Jack Morgan instead of just taking him back to the Chakuk estate? Because I needed to find out if Morgan had also been in contact with Braxton the Malison Ring, Harper said. To do that, I needed to gain his trust. I also needed his ship if I was going to pull off this Virgil Morgan charade. Too many of the Brumgas had seen the Essene and might be suspicious if I showed up flying an entirely different ship. And part of the trust building was to kill 3 of the Patry's Brumgas? Frost demanded, digging the muzzle of his gun a little harder into Harper's side. Harper didn't even flinch. I told you the Chakuk family had been infiltrated, he said mildly. I never said all the traitors were here in your fleet. There was another short silence. We'll be sure to ask the Patry about that when we talk to him, Neverland said, his voice neutral. Where's Jack now? And his dragon, Frost added. Yes, his Kadar, Harper said, shaking his head. Darndest thing I ever saw. Actually, I didn't do anything with either of them. I didn't have to. They went off somewhere, brought me back a roommate, then disappeared again. You didn't ask where they were going? I didn't care where they were going, Harper said. All I needed was his ship, and he was handing that to me on a platinum platter. I waited until he was gone, popped off my cuffs, then plugged in the .2 coordinates the Patry Chakuk had given me. This roommate you mentioned, Frost said. What was his name? No idea, Harper said. We were never introduced, and the only times he opened his mouth were to be loud or insulting, or both. I dumped him with the local cops just to get rid of him. What did he look like? Frost asked, his voice gone suddenly dark. And where exactly did Morgan pick him up? Frost shrugged. Harper shrugged. Medium height, slender build, rusty brown hair, thin face. We were in the middle of nowhere on Bentry. Why? Frost snarled a curse. Chiggers! Who?
Harper asked, frowning.
That's impossible,
Neverland said, ignoring the question.
He was seen boarding the...
He broke off.
Wasn't he seen boarding the Foxwolf? You tell me,
Frost said, stepping around Harper and heading for Neverland's desk. He got 2 steps before he abruptly stopped.
Dang it all! We can't even call over and check. Who's Chiggers?
Harper asked again.
One of our pilots,
Neverland said grimly.
He got separated from the group picking up those KK-29 patrol ships you probably saw on your way in.
He looked at Frost.
We thought he'd made it back safely. Blasted kid!
Frost bit out.
Sir, we have got to get word to the Foxwolf right away. How?
Neverland countered.
Besides, it's probably way too late to sound the alarm now. Morgan and the Kada have undoubtedly already made their presence known.
Frost swore viciously.
Then 6 days before we can even get help to them. 6 days?
Harper demanded.
Where are we going? Gosta's End?
We're doing an evasive to our next rendezvous point,
Neverland told him. We thought it would be a useful distraction for anyone who might be monitoring you. Terrific, Harper said heavily. How big a force is the Foxwolf carrying? 318 Brumgas plus 5 of my men and a new recruit we're not entirely sure of, Frost said, plus 9 Valaga. Against a 14-year-old boy in a Kada. Harper pursed his lips. Not too bad. You haven't seen the Kada in action, Frost said grimly. I have. They'll have their work cut out for them. Still, they do have those 9 Valaga, Neverland added. One would think that after all these years, they'd have some idea of how to deal with Kada. I guess we'll find out, Harper said. I guess we will, Neverland said. And we can always make do with a few less Brumgas if we have to. He waved a hand. But I'm forgetting my manners, and you did say something about wanting to rest before dinner. Colonel, would you escort Mr. Harper to his stateroom? There's an empty one forward that he can use. Certainly! Frost gestured back toward the office door. Mr. Harper! Carefully, Tanim eased back from the grill and backed her way along the duct. This time, she waited until she was 2 turns away from the office before speaking. Allison, she whispered, did you hear all that? Yes, the girl's voice whispered back. Interesting. Did you know all of this when you made it look like Mershpa had broken into Neverland's office? I'd never heard a word of it, Allison told her. It's beautifully convenient, though. I suppose. Tanim hesitated. Do you think Jack and Dracos are really over in that other ship? I don't know, Allison said, her voice tight. But it sounds like the sort of crazy stunt they'd pull. Is there anything we can do to help them? You heard Neverland, Allison said. As long as we're in hyperspace, we're cut off from the rest of the ships. Then what do we do? The only thing we can, Allison said. We keep an eye on things here and try to plan what we'll do when we reach point 3. And we'll keep stirring the fire beneath Neverland and Frost and see if we can get this alliance to implode. To what? To fall apart, Allison explained. To self-destruct. Oh, Tanim said. What do you want me to do now? There was a soft, thoughtful hiss from the comm clip. See if you can find out where Neverland and Frost have put Harper, she said. If he's really working for the Patrichukuk, we'll want to see about pointing some of Neverland's suspicions in his direction. You think he might not be? Might not be what? Working for the Patrichukuk. Who knows, Allison said. If he's not, coming aboard like this would be a pretty crazy thing to do. On the other hand, Cornelius Braxton is famous for pulling crazy stunts. It sounds like he and Jack would get along very well,
Tanim suggested. Probably, Allison agreed. Off you go now. Be careful.
And I will!
Getting her bearings, Tanim turned toward the bow and headed for the forward group of staterooms.